Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamiti Namane Namaste. Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachaline Nirvisesa Sunivadi Paschati Satari. Today we're going to speak about Prabhupada. We're going to resume a class that I was giving, it must have been 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago. We started, well, we actually know when we started. We started at the time of Prabhupada's Vyasa-puja, and then I thought I would read and comment on my Vyasa-puja offering, because it has a lot of philosophy. And then so we started reading and commenting on it, and we never finished it. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly where we left off. Excuse me. Hare Krishna. So, I'm going to begin reading where I think we left off. And the theme, well actually, why don't I read from the beginning and I'll start commenting where I think we left off. Disciples should understand their position. They are nothing without the grace of their Guru. It is abundantly clear to me that without your mercy, I have absolutely no hope for becoming Krishna conscious. This is as true today as it was when I first met you. As you said of your spiritual master, quote, he saved me, unquote. Srila Prabhupada, you saved all of us, and when we reflect on how we were pulled out of Maya, we can barely understand how it was possible. Or how it happened. Your disciples are living examples of your mercy. And I, a layman, have been gifted by you with the potential to climb mountains. I think I need, excuse me, I think in here I have something. Yes. I think I'm going to need these to be able to talk. Hare Krishna. I came to North Carolina without a voice, and we just did a workshop on japa all day. But that's not good for when you don't have a voice. Srila Prabhupada, I am just an ordinary person. But if I am ever able to do any service for you, it is only because of the power of your instructions and service. In fact, you once wrote, not that you once wrote, you wrote in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that by following your instructions, our chanting of Sankirtan will have the same effect on people as Lord Nityananda's chanting had on the people who heard him, which is amazing. And isn't this a fact? Young devotees, knowing little about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, were able to turn others into devotees, who then were able to make other devotees. This happened because of their faith in your instructions. You are our powerhouse of mercy, and if we are connected to that powerhouse, we can, in spite of our deficiencies, light the life of others. So I want to stop here and begin discussing it. Excuse me, I thought my voice would be better. Jai Nrsimha Swami ki jai. You're in Hardwar. Wow. Yes. Say some prayers that I can become as Krishna conscious as you are, and do a fraction of the service you're doing. That would be mercy for me. Nrsimha Swami ki jai. So, there is an idea that unless you take shelter of a Mahabhagavat or someone very, very advanced, it's going to be really hard to be Krishna conscious. Okay, we can support that idea in Shastra. But then the question comes, what's the difference between taking shelter of a Mahabhagwan and taking shelter of someone who's holding his hands, and him, in this analogy, being the powerhouse, and you touching him? Do you get the same thing? My remembrance of the spreading of Krishna consciousness would indicate that both are true. There is nothing that compares to being with Prabhupada. Yet, at the same time, many people were with him and didn't do well. They had his association and they left. And many people came right at the tail end before Prabhupada left, and they never met him, but they got initiated by him. And many people came after Prabhupada, and their only association with Prabhupada, aside from service to ISKCON and reading his books, was what I would say the most direct association was the association of his disciples. Of course, his books as well. But there was something special about associating with Prabhupada's disciples, and then people who associated with his disciples and followed his instructions became purified, because the disciples were connected to the powerhouse. Health is number one. Yeah, I took so many pills yesterday. You can't imagine. If you're trying to recover your voice, probably talking for 8 hours is not a good idea. Anyway, we'll manage somehow or other. Krishna will get us through all of this. So we witness personally many, many people becoming very advanced devotees. And sometimes we would say, I made so-and-so a devotee, but Prabhupada made them a devotee. And we experienced, and it was obvious, that we were not very advanced, but we felt so empowered because we were connected to Prabhupada. We felt, in a sense, that we were just channeling Prabhupada, that we ourselves just had no power personally. Obviously, off the street, engaged in material activities, and then soon we're out on the street again, but as devotees, helping other people become devotees. So, how did that happen? Well, if Prabhupada didn't come to America, it wouldn't have happened. But the glory of Prabhupada is that he was so powerful that power would go through us. It wasn't like a little trickle, and then when we touched it, it just kind of nothing came out of the other side of our body. It wasn't like that. So what we're seeing, that Prabhupada is so powerful that what was coming out of us was in many ways as powerful. Now, this would sound wrong to say that in some cases more powerful. But I can say it because Prabhupada said it. He said sometimes the disciple does more than the guru. That's interesting. But how does he do it? He does it because of the power of his guru. So sometimes by being so dedicated and transparent, the disciple, using the power of his guru, like looking at the power of the guru like money, the father gives you money and you take the business to a different level. You didn't create the money, you didn't create the business. Or you invest it, and so you needed him to give you the money to invest, but you, by his instructions, also invested it, and you did more. So we can't forget that. And that's, has often been said, the glory of Prabhupada is that he made devotees who are glorious, who could make other devotees who are glorious. The glory of Prabhupada is not that he's the only one who's glorious, or that he couldn't make pure devotees. And so sometimes devotees say, well, there's always going to be some pure devotee, on the planet that you need to go to and take shelter of. And if you're smart, you'll go and take shelter of it. And this idea has been around a long time. And in some cases, it's actually true. Some devotees were not doing well in their Krishna consciousness, and they needed the association of very advanced devotees, and they just didn't have faith in anyone in ISKCON. And some great Gaudiya Vaishnava came and uplifted them. We see that. I'm not denying that. But it's also true that many people, through the association of Prabhupada's disciples, and I'm also talking about myself, through association of my god brothers and sisters, we found tremendous power, inspiration to continue our Krishna consciousness. So when we say, oh, there must be a Mahabhagavat, a second-class devotee, Prabhupada said, is insufficient to give you guidance. But we're not being guided by second-class devotees. We're being guided by a first-class devotee, and we are sharing the guidance of a first-class devotee. And if we can properly share the guidance of a first-class devotee, it doesn't necessarily make us a first-class devotee, but it makes the instruction we give first class. It makes it the same. Otherwise, how could anybody become a good devotee after Prabhupada left, if that Shakti wasn't there? So I was reflecting in this offering how personally I don't feel special, but I definitely feel that Prabhupada's special. And I wanted to share this because people will say, well, you're disciples of Prabhupada, so it's easy for you to say that, or you can do this, but we're now 50 years from, or 42 years, whatever it is, from the time Prabhupada left. So, our situation is different. It's different, but it's not different. It's essentially not different. Yeah, it's different. We saw Prabhupada. That was special. There's no question. We can't minimize what we got from Prabhupada. And when you hear Prabhupada's disciples speak, they're just different. I mean, even they're not doing so well in Krishna consciousness, but when you hear them speak about Prabhupada, you can see how deeply Prabhupada touched them and how deeply their lives were changed. So we can't minimize that. But at the same time, we can't deny that the essential power that's needed to be Krishna conscious is coming through Prabhupada, through his followers. And if you didn't get it directly and have that special experience, still the essential Shakti of Prabhupada is there through his followers. That's the whole way that disciplic succession works and the parampara works. So let me read the next paragraph, because I think it just fits in right now with what we're saying. When you went to New York, your chanting acted on the hearts of people in miraculous ways. You were empowered by Nityananda Prabhu to such a degree that the results you achieved were no less than the results that Nityananda Prabhu would have achieved if he personally went to New York in 1965. That's amazing, right? Let me read that again. You were empowered by Nityananda Prabhu to such a degree that the results you achieved were no less than the results that Nityananda Prabhu would have achieved if he personally went to New York in 1965. He worked through you, and you offer that same empowerment to us. This gives me hope. If I follow your instructions, I am confident that my words and chanting will act on others, not because of me, but because of your power and because your power and potency will come through me. So this is true for all of you. I'm expressing this personally, but this is true for all of you. So this was a statement, this was an observation made by one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, that Nityananda Shakti was coming through Prabhupada, and Nityananda Shakti is this Shakti of compassion for the most fallen. So it was coming through Prabhupada. And therefore, because that Shakti was fully manifesting through Prabhupada, the result was the same as if Nityananda Prabhu was there personally. So when we say Shakti Avatar, we mean the Shakti of that avatar is now within the body of a Jiva soul, and that Jiva soul then can act in the same way, with the same potency that Shakti Avatar has. In other words, he can act in the same way as that Shakti Avatar acted. So, saying that what Prabhupada did in New York was different than what Nityananda Prabhu would have done or could have done, it's an important explanation of what Shakti Avatar means. It means the empowered devotee or the empowered incarnation puts his power in another person because of their purity. Now, that being said, means that any of us can get Prabhupada's power, and Prabhupada's power can work through us. Because it's not our qualification per se, but it's our willingness to be selfless, it's our willingness to perfectly represent Prabhupada, to perfectly follow what he does, and then he'll use us. So, I was in a lecture in which Prabhupada said that if you stay in ISKCON, what will happen is you'll get credit for spreading Krishna consciousness, and Krishna consciousness will spread. So Lord Chaitanya has to spread it through us, so he's looking for willing people, and then he'll give the requisite resources, which we're talking about here, specifically the resource of power, or you could say also knowledge. He'll give that Bala Shakti, Power Shakti, Jnana Shakti. These are potencies Krishna has. You know, he has Jnana Shakti, knowledge Shakti, and Bala Shakti, strength Shakti. So if you want to serve, he'll give you that Bala Shakti and Jnana Shakti. And then when he gives it to you, then you can do things that you would not normally be able to do. So it's not you doing it, it's the Shakti that's given to you that's doing it. And so when you understand that, then you won't say, well, I never met Prabhupada, or I'm not this or that, so how can I do this or that? You won't say that. You'll understand that I'm not this or that, but you won't say, I can't do this or that. So I'm not this or that, but the Shakti can do it. So that's the idea. So if Nityananda Shakti is coming through Prabhupada, and Prabhupada gives that Shakti to us, then we're good. We can affect people. And so I don't think that anyone should doubt the fact that if anyone has Prabhupada Shakti, they can do amazing things. I think the concern here, or the important point is, how do you qualify to get that Shakti? Knowing that if I have it, I will be able to act far beyond my material capability, or even beyond my spiritual capability. So, this Godbrother Prabhupada, when he said that Prabhupada was empowered by Nityananda, he explained why. And so this is the answer to the question of how do you get the Shakti. He said, Prabhupada had no other desire in his heart other than to save the conditioned soul. And it's absolutely a fact. Because Prabhupada has indicated in his writings in different places what's actually in his heart. And you will find what's in Prabhupada's heart is the desire that every person on this planet become Krishna conscious. Ultimately, every living entity. That's Prabhupada's heart. That's where his heart is at. That's all that's in his heart. The desire to purely give the message of Mahaprabhu to the world, to do everything to disentangle them from Maya and bring them back to Krishna, and to execute pure bhakti. That's his desire. So then this Godbrother said, that's why Nityananda's mercy could sit in Prabhupada's heart, because there was nothing else other than the desire of Mahaprabhu, the desire of Nityananda. That's all that was in Prabhupada's heart. So you can imagine, right, if something else were in Prabhupada's heart and that mercy was given, even if it was given, it couldn't fully act, because the mercy is saying go this way, and unless Prabhupada was pure, he might say, no, I want to go this other way. So that's the qualification, that you and I want to help spread the mission of Mahaprabhu. That's what we want to do. And then Mahaprabhu says, oh, okay, so this is what you want to do. Okay, I'll give you the power to do that, because you have no other motive and you have no other desire. I can use you. So that's the qualification for being empowered. And unless this empowerment is a fact, it's a factual reality, the Krishna Consciousness movement would have been dead by now. Or everyone in the Krishna Consciousness movement would have had to take shelter of other Mahabhagavats who exist outside of ISKCON. Now, we know that Prabhupada never said we have to bring another acharya into ISKCON. He might have said you could see other people and get advice, but he never said you need a new acharya. He said you run it through the GBC. Now, you might say, yes, but the GBC made mistakes. That's true. And I'm sure Prabhupada was well aware they would make mistakes, but being sincere as they are, they would correct those mistakes, or they would learn from their mistakes. Unfortunately, some people suffered because of those mistakes. And in a sense, those mistakes were expected for young devotees. And if they had taken guidance from seniors, yes, you could say they maybe would have not made those or made less. Whatever the case may be, at least the point is that Krishna consciousness could not be existing without Prabhupada's Shakti. And people today are becoming Krishna conscious. It's an objective thing. They're rising early, they're following principles, they're chanting their rounds. There must be some Shakti to do that. It just can't happen without that mercy coming through Prabhupada, through his followers. So that's proof that Prabhupada's Shakti is working. And if it wasn't working, no one could become Krishna conscious, at least not very much. So this discussion is going on two levels. One level is philosophical, that some people say, no, you have to personally have association with a Mahabhagavat, otherwise it's kind of like you're doomed to be in Maya, or you won't become very advanced and you won't understand Siddhanta and so forth. And then the other side of the discussion is that if you're connected to Prabhupada directly or through his followers, that Shakti is available to you if you're able to receive it through your own purity. And then you can touch the hearts of people. You can change people's lives. Although you may feel you're just an ordinary person, you can change people's lives because you're connected to somebody who's connected to Prabhupada, and you're all touching hands, and then you're touching the hand of this next person. And so the electricity is still going through you. And also, it's a fact that if you want to be empowered and you want to help people, there's no question that Krishna won't give you that power. He'll definitely give it to you. Let's read on. Srila Prabhupada, I am an example of how anyone who takes shelter of you, even though useless, can become useful. So many ordinary persons have become extraordinary by contact with you or your devotees. I pray that you make me extraordinary so that I can also make other ordinary persons extraordinary. Certainly this is possible by your mercy. And I am confident that so many wonderful things will manifest in the future if we follow your simple instructions to rise early, chant purely, associate respectfully with devotees, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, worship the deities, and dedicate our lives to sharing this process with others. My greatest desire is to be an example of what you teach and share that desire with others. I beg your mercy to be able to do this. So that's the end of the offering. Your ordinary servant praying for your eternal shelter and service. So we're right now working on a book about Prabhupada based on my experiences. And we were thinking of calling the book An Ordinary Person with an Extraordinary Guru, something like that. And the idea being that we're all ordinary, but when you contact someone who's extraordinary, that even though you're ordinary, you can become extraordinary. Now, there's a kind of false humility that devotees have who will say, oh, I could never become extraordinary. All right, from the material perspective, that could be true. But from the material perspective, you're just dealing with your karma. But Krishna consciousness has nothing to do with your karma. So from the philosophical, the real philosophical understanding is, if your guru uses you, if Prabhupada uses you, there's no saying what you can do, even though you may not be qualified to do it. And this was a theme that Prabhupada brought up a lot. And I don't know if you've really picked up on this, because it's hard to read when Prabhupada says, I'm not qualified. I have no qualification to do this. I'm not a scholar. I'm not this or that. Because I think a lot of times when we read that, we actually forget that we read it because we don't believe it. And so that it doesn't stick that Prabhupada said that. But he said it, and he said it a lot. I have no qualification. He said that so many times. And then he would pose the question, so then how was I able to be successful? Because it's a contradiction. I have no qualification, but I'm successful. And he would say, by the grace of my guru. And so you could see that as Prabhupada's humility, which of course it was, but what way we're talking here is, I would like you to see it as a philosophical point that Prabhupada's making. That, like Prabhupada, in a sense, he's saying, you don't need qualification. You just need mercy. And you get mercy by being a pure channel of your guru, of Srila Prabhupada. And then it doesn't really matter if it's you or me or her or him. It's when you are pure, you can purely channel what's pure. Then it's not limited by your karma, by your material limitations. So that's important to understand. And the reason it's important to understand is, one, so that we're not reticent or reluctant to get the mercy, but perhaps more important is so we won't limit ourselves in what we can do. Now, let's go back to 1968 and this amazing thing that Prabhupada said. And you've heard this before, and you might think, well, what's so amazing about that? But let's discuss what's so amazing about it. It's 1968. Let's get the picture. You have, in 1968, you have a fair amount of devotees that are teenagers. I was 18 in 1968. So most of my godbrothers and godsisters are like 1 or 2 years older than me, the majority. So in 1968, anyone who came at the most would have been 20 years old, and many of them would have been even 16 or 17. So let's say 1968. Between 18 and 21, that was the age of devotees, and probably more closer to 20, 19 or 20. And Prabhupada saying, in the future, you will become gurus. Now meditate on that for a minute. That's an amazing statement. And so what does Prabhupada mean? Because obviously none of them are qualified. He's saying there's a potency. Guru, the Shakti, Balaram's the original guru. There's a potency there. Okay, it's 1968, you're 20 years old, you've been a devotee for 6 months, and your guru is saying, someday you'll have to be a guru. Why is he even saying that? He's saying that because there's a Shakti there, that if you get that, if you're qualified to get that Shakti, then even though you're not qualified you become qualified. What does it mean to not be qualified? Okay, I'm not very advanced, so what's my qualification? Qualification is I have a pure desire to save the conditioned souls, to serve the mission of my guru. And so why could Prabhupada say this? I mean, why is he thinking in 1968 that these people I'm making devotees are going to be capable of being gurus? Because Prabhupada knew if they followed his instructions and lived a pure life, then his Shakti could go through their hearts and they could represent him properly and purely, and they could make other people devotees. And you can say that's Prabhupada's faith, and of course it is, but at the same time, it's also what Prabhupada was seeing, because even though it was 1968, but he was seeing his disciples were going out and making others devotees. We had discussed this before, that imagine Prabhupada came and he had no followers. Nobody became a devotee. How would he have spread Krishna consciousness around the world? He doesn't have any devotees. You could say, oh, Prabhupada could do it single-handedly, Krishna could do it. Yeah, you could say that, but practically speaking, if he didn't have those followers, then he has no foot soldiers, no one to represent what he's teaching. And once he has followers, you could say, oh, look, this is how this works. Look at how this person's life has changed. So the fact that even though it's 1968, Prabhupada can see people's lives are changing. This is actually working. And it's my disciples who are preaching to these people. It's my disciples' kirtan and my disciples' mood and attitude and presence that's making other people devotees. And therefore, Prabhupada's already seeing that his Shakti through the lives of his disciples is working as early as 1968 or even before that. He just said in 1968 that you'll have to become guru. So this is just a further confirmation that Prabhupada's saying, my Shakti is not mine. I am not qualified. It's my Guru's Shakti, and ultimately it's Nityananda's Shakti, because we're saving the fallen souls, and this is what Nityananda does. So my Guru is representing Nityananda Shakti. I inherited that Shakti, and although Prabhupada's not saying it this way, but we can say he inherited that Shakti because, why? His only desire was to follow Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and therefore he was the perfect person to be given the Shakti, to be able to touch people's hearts and change them and know how to preach to them. Exactly. And Prabhupada knew exactly what to say and who to say it to and how to say it. There's no question. That's an obvious aspect of his Shakti. And then Prabhupada gives that Shakti to his followers, and they represent that Shakti, and people become devotees. And therefore Prabhupada says, yes, in the future, you have to be a little more pure if you're going to be a guru, but it's the Shakti that's doing it. And so I've noticed, and it's obvious, that if you go into an assembly of devotees and tell them, Prabhus, Matajis, in the future you'll have to become guru, everyone will just think, what I said is completely crazy. I've said this before, so I know the response. And I see it on their face. They don't tell me I'm crazy, but on their face it's written. No, that's crazy. There's no way. I could never do that. Okay, so we can say you could never do that, but can the Shakti do that? Yeah, the Shakti can do that. Can you qualify to have that Shakti work through you? Yes, you can qualify. And so therefore, to say I can't do it is the qualification to do it. But to say I can't do it in the sense that the Shakti can't work through me, that's wrong. That's not our philosophy. And that's how should we say? It's just the wrong way to think, because it's not true. And if you think that way, in a sense, you're cheating the conditioned souls from what you could do for them by saying that I can't represent this Shakti, I'm not able. So he really is saying, I can't really help people as much as they need to be helped. I can't help other people become pure devotees. No, you can, because if you have the Shakti will do it, and you just have to purely represent it. And that's a very important point, because otherwise if we think we can't, then we're cheating people. Well, my association's not going to help you, and I'm not very Krishna conscious, etc., etc. No. If Prabhupada's saying, I want you to become guru, he's saying that in 1968, he's also saying it to you today, that whether you become Diksha or Siksha, that doesn't matter. Well, it matters in some cases, but generally Prabhupada's saying, I want you to become guru. So whether you have disciples, Diksha or Siksha, or whether you just take care of one person, that's what we're supposed to do. Just like in the preaching programs we inaugurated in Mexico City, when we do workshops, we have devotees there working with the people in the workshop. So when we do exercises, there's like a group of 5 or 6 or 7 people, and the devotees work with them, and they make relationships with them, and then they stay in touch with them. So they're always in touch. So it's like, in a sense, those people become those devotees' disciples. They're under their care. Those person's spiritual life depends to some degree on that devotee who's taking care of them. And of course we can say if those people are strong, they get so much association at the temple or through our other programs, which is true. But they still need to be cared for. So we have the mentor system, and there's so many mentors now around the world. The mentors are like gurus also. So this is the expansion of this idea. So if you say, I can't do that, I'm not qualified, that's your qualification. But if you say, I can't do it, I'm not qualified, and you believe that you can't represent or channel that Shakti, then that's kind of like violence to the world. Because you can actually give people something that you're not giving because you're just not stepping up to the plate, so to speak, or you're being falsely humble and saying, I can't do this. And of course, we might say, well, in some cases, maybe some of us are not advanced enough to make an impact. But then the answer to that is, then become advanced enough, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's the duty. So, we could say, why aren't you advanced enough? Oh, I'm not advanced. So when are you going to become advanced enough? If this is what Prabhupada wants, then shouldn't you become advanced enough? Should you shy away from it? No. So Prabhupada gives us service. We look at the service and we think, well, this is difficult. I can't do it. But we don't think, I'm not going to try, unless we're certain we'll make a total mess of it and destroy people and hurt people and so forth. But in general, that's not going to happen. So we look at the service and we say, okay, this is what Prabhupada wants. And if I'm willing, then he'll give me what I need to do it. And that we find that happening. So I don't have to be qualified materially, but I have to be qualified spiritually, at least to have the desire. So I want to go to, I have a question here. It seems that Srila Prabhupada was chosen to do what he did. Srila Bhakti, well, he actually chose himself, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave instructions to spread Krishna consciousness in English-speaking countries, also to others, but no one was able to do it. I believe that some others, disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, wanted to fulfill his desire, but they were not empowered. So it means to do such things, Srila Prabhupada did become someone, had to be chosen. So it seems not only desire is necessary, there must be empowerment. No, because what you're saying is, I'll rephrase what you're saying, because what you said just confirms what you think it doesn't confirm. The order was given to everyone. Okay, so the empowerment is potentially there for everyone. But then you said not everybody could do it. And then we would have to question why not everyone could do it. Well, some people couldn't do it because they actually didn't believe that Westerners could become Vaishnavas. Some people didn't do it because they didn't feel that they could. It would be difficult for them to have that kind of association. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to live in the West with the Western people and preach to them. It would be not that they couldn't do it, but not their taste, so to speak. And then others just had service in India and didn't understand the importance of preaching in the West, and maybe others felt that they would be more effective in India. So there may be different reasons, there may be more reasons. But whatever the reason is, at least we know Prabhupada took the order. This is what my Guru wants. And Prabhupada has told us many, many times, when your Guru wants something, I think we discussed this yesterday, when your Guru wants something, you can't minimize that. You can't think, oh, well, yeah, but, and now it's 2019, and he wanted that in 1975, so, certain things are not time-bound, obviously. And that instruction was not a time-bound instruction to come to the West. And Prabhupada took it up 40-odd years later, 42 years later. And so he qualified himself for that empowerment. He wasn't, in a sense, the chosen one, although you could say that. There's some evidence in Shastra. But if we're speaking philosophically, we want to look at it in terms of how it would help us and inspire us. And by looking at it philosophically, it gives a broader view. And I'm sure this is how Prabhupada would want to see it. That the order was given to everyone. He took up the order because he read Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur say that you have to take the order of the Guru as your life and soul. And when he read that, he decided, yes, better late than never. I have to do this. I can't leave this world without having executed this instruction. And when Prabhupada came to the West, we know he was carrying books, but more importantly, he carried that instruction as his life and soul. And he was willing to do anything to fulfill it. And that's how he became chosen to do it. He chose himself. But Prabhupada said that instruction was for everyone, not just for him. So this is really important, because the same thing can certainly happen within ISKCON, that Prabhupada gives so many instructions that are neglected. And some disciples seriously take up that instruction and they become empowered, and they become very effective in making people devotees, because they're torchbearers of Prabhupada's desire and Prabhupada's, just everything Prabhupada, everything that stands for Prabhupada, and how he wanted to preach and what he wanted this movement to be, and how all the programs he wanted, they just represent that so well that his Shakti is just working through them perfectly. So that's how we should see it. You can read in Shastra and say, well, yes, here it says that he'll be the Senapati general, and still, that's there, but the way Prabhupada would explain it is that whoever is going to be the one to do that service is going to do it not by accident, but because they're pure, and they're purely representing the desire of their Guru and Mahaprabhu. That's how he wants us to understand it. That's how he presented it himself. And as we were discussing earlier, he also presented that I don't have qualification, which tells us you don't need qualification other than the purity and willingness. Yeah. Now, and then here we have a comment, but there were predictions. Yeah. Predictions are interesting, because a prediction should not minimize the value of a person's purity and contribution. You say, well, it was predicted, so, in a sense, we say a prediction glorifies the person, but in a sense, it can also undermine. You say, well, it was predicted, so he did it. And the problem with that, if we focus on the prediction, is that, well, we can't do what Prabhupada did because he was special. Yeah, that's true, but then why did Prabhupada say the disciple could do more? because the disciple can get the empowerment. So generally, rarely, maybe only once that I'm aware of, Prabhupada even came close to saying that, he had come to do this. Or, one time he said, Krishna wanted me to do this, or Krishna allowed me to do this, but he never said, I descended to do it. Well, maybe once he said it, but even if he said it, it wasn't the way he wanted us to understand what he was doing. He wanted us to understand it in terms of, you can also do this. You don't have to be predicted, you don't have to be avatar, but you can also do this. Not only can you also do this, this is what I want you to do. This is what you're supposed to do. And like Mahaprabhu said, wherever you go, whoever you meet, give them Krishna, and I'll always be with you, and I will always protect you. So that's what Prabhupada wanted us to understand. You will be victorious. I was listening to a lecture a few days ago, and Prabhupada was talking about the prediction and the success of Krishna Conscious movement. And then he was very emotional and very heavy, and he was saying that Krishna says this is going to happen, or Mahaprabhu says this is going to happen. Because he says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Or if the devotee says this is going to happen, it's going to happen. So he said, we have no fear, because it is said it's going to happen, and therefore we have faith that it will happen. And with that faith, we become fearless. So that's the proper attitude. So Krishna consciousness will spread around the world. Prabhupada is the empowered acharya. Prabhupada said it will spread. Therefore, we are acting with that understanding that Krishna consciousness will spread. We're not acting with the understanding, I don't know, maybe the movement won't go on, maybe there's problems. Of course, on a practical level, you have to consider that we can make mistakes and we could undermine Prabhupada's mission. But on this level, Prabhupada's saying, if Mahaprabhu says every town and village, it will happen. And if you have faith that it must happen, and you carry out your seva in that way, then you will be fearless and you will be successful. So I think that's how, the best way to understand Prabhupada or take Prabhupada is to see his example, because he always presented himself, or we could say rarely did he present himself as anything other than a conditioned soul who had taken the order of his guru. That's how he presented himself. So if that's how he presented himself, that's how he wants us to see him. And if we see him that way, then it becomes an example for us. So we don't say, well, he was especially empowered, he descended to do this. But he's saying, no, you should do what I'm doing, and you could do this. And so Prabhupada often would say, do what I'm doing. So do what I'm doing, you can do this also. This is what you should, not only could you do this, but this is what you're supposed to be doing. Because otherwise we'll just say, I can't do this. And I remember during Prabhupada's time, like, I can't was not in anyone's vocabulary. It was, if someone said, I can't, we would look at them and think, you didn't hear Prabhupada's class? You're not chanting your rounds? Like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, I can't? That was just not part of our reality. I can't was not part of our reality. Because Prabhupada's Shakti was so prevalent within our organization. It just was just so deeply within everyone's heart that the instruction, Mahaprabhu's instruction, every town and village, it was just vibrating in our hearts. We were seeing it, we were visualizing it. And so we were just carrying out the vision of what we knew would happen, because our faith was 100% aligned with those instructions, because Prabhupada's faith was 100% aligned with those instructions. So, now sometimes today we get a lot of, yeah, but that was you, that was then, Prabhupada was here, we're different. And if you say that, you're going to believe that. And if you believe that, not a whole lot's going to happen. Okay, the only thing you can believe is Prabhupada is not here. Okay, physically he's not here, but in so many other ways he's here. And if you believe in those instructions, and you believe that you can be empowered, things are going to be different. Things are going to happen differently. But if it's like, oh, but Prabhupada disciples, you're special, things are different now, society's different, we don't have that association, devotees don't feel the same way. But all that does is just make it worse to say that. It's like, but because it may be true what you're saying, but essentially it's not true. Because Prabhupada is here, and essentially things are not different, and the instructions are still valuable, and they still work. So that's important. We see nowadays that some Prabhupada disciples are doing amazing things, like my Guru Indradumna Swami, but most of Srila Prabhupada's disciples seem to be not that empowered. Why only few seem to be empowered and the rest just live ordinary life? Or maybe I see it wrong. Well, that's a big question. You don't see all of them because not all of them are in ISKCON, number one. And so you probably wouldn't know all the preaching that the ones who left ISKCON are doing. And then the ones who are not in the forefront of ISKCON, you wouldn't know what they're like because there's no way to learn about them because they're not, opening some temple or making waves somewhere. But there's a lot of godbrothers I have who are very Krishna conscious, doing some menial service here or there. And I just heard about one godbrother who's starting a project called, he's calling it, he's saying the world should be Sankirtan-centric, and that will solve the ecological problem. So he has this whole propaganda he's making to save the world ecologically by saying that everything should be used in Sankirtan for Krishna. And he's got this whole philosophy. I was reading it. It's like amazing. But you've probably never heard about this devotee. So Prabhupada deeply affected the hearts of many devotees. And a lot of devotees who may not be doing so much now circumstantially, I would say for most of them in their heart, they're either regretful that they can't do that much or they're making plans how they will do more in the future. So that's there also. But one time when Prabhupada was asked why Lord Brahma was chasing his daughter, or Lord Brahma did things which were not Krishna conscious, Prabhupada said, well, we should think if Lord Brahma can fall, he's so much higher than us. So we have to be very careful ourselves because we're much weaker. So this is the lesson. So you might think, well, there's lots of Prabhupada disciples who aren't doing much or doing anything, or even in Krishna consciousness. That we don't know exactly, but let's say for the sake of discussion, that there's a fair number that are not doing well. And so what are you supposed to think? You're supposed to think, well, if you look at the disciples that are doing well, and you look at the disciples that aren't doing well, it's nothing to do with Prabhupada. He's given the same thing to both. And so some are taking it in one way and some are not taking it in the same way, and then the results are different. And then I think it supports the whole point we're making during this class, that it's the Shakti is accessible to any of us. And even if you're a disciple of Prabhupada, it doesn't mean that you have special access to that Shakti. Prabhupada may especially take care of you and save you in some way. But if you're a disciple of Prabhupada, Shakti is still there for you. Also, and you can do amazing service. And you might do more service than even a disciple of Prabhupada. And we see that. There are many grand disciples of Prabhupada who are doing tremendous service. It means that Shakti is like so alive in their heart. And the Shakti may not be so alive in the heart of Prabhupada's direct disciple. because they're neglecting that instruction, or they're neglecting their sadhana. So I think the important point here is that nobody should think, because I'm 50 years or 42 years distant from Prabhupada, that I can't do wonderful things in Krishna consciousness. No, that Shakti is alive. It's not bound by time and space. That Shakti is available to you. If you have Prabhupada's desire and you have his instruction, you'll have that Shakti. And so I want to say a strong word. I don't want to say it's wrong. I want to say it's bad. It's actually bad to say, you Prabhupada disciples can do this, we can't. You're special, we're not special. Okay, you can say Prabhupada disciples are special. It was special to have Prabhupada's association. But to say those things, to disempower yourself, it's not only wrong, it's bad. Because by doing that, you're actually passing that down. You're passing that negative germ into other people who are all going to believe, well, you as Prabhupada disciples could do A, B, and C, but we as followers, grand disciples, we can't. And you don't want to pass that germ down to the next generation. So if you have that germ, you got to get rid of it, because it's not true and it's not helpful. Like I said, not only wrong, it's bad, it's injurious, it's harmful, it's a germ. Got to get rid of it, because Prabhupada never taught that. And we shouldn't teach something that he's not teaching. But Prabhupada was waiting, fulfilling his Guru's instruction till he fulfilled all his material life's duties. But we are expected to fulfill Guru's instruction. At the same time, yeah, we are. And it's often extremely difficult, because Prabhupada said, I wasted so many years. He said he wasted. He felt that he wasted. And then he said, better late than never. So, Prabhupada was always telling us, don't waste, do it now. So you do it according to what you can do. But at least, let's say I'm not in a position to do as much as I would like to, circumstantially. I don't have the time, I don't have the resources. I have certain responsibilities to my family, to my work, or whatever. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't have the desire to do it. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't do something. And it definitely shouldn't mean that you tell everybody that we can't fulfill Prabhupada's instructions on a high level, only the Prabhupada disciples can do it. Doesn't mean that. So, it's practical. Everyone's situation is going to be different, but it's nice to remember that Prabhupada was regretful that he couldn't fulfill that order. He was definitely regretful. He once said, maybe more than once, that I should have done it right away, but I couldn't. Said if I wasn't married, I could have done it. When Srila Prabhupada received the instruction to teach, he could not immediately follow the instruction, but he meditated on it. Should we follow? Yeah, we should follow the line. If you get an instruction from your guru and you can't do it right now, you should think, when can I do it? How can I do it? I must do it. And that will keep you going. And I'm going to take Radha Priya's advice and stop talking, because I also need more time to chant, and my voice needs to rest. So it was nice talking to you. I think a few points here are extremely important. We don't want to pass on a disciplic succession of negative germs, because Prabhupada passed on to us so much positivity, so much faith. We want to keep that, we want to cherish it, and we want to use it, and we want to pass it down to the next generation. Okay? So, if Krishna says something, if Mahaprabhu says something, if Prabhupada says something, it's going to happen, and it happens through those who have faith in those words, that those words were spoken, they will happen. And then you execute your service in the mood that this is going to happen because my Guru Maharaj said it, because Prabhupada said it, because Mahaprabhu said it, and I'm executing my service in that mood. That's how we did it with Srila Prabhupada. He said it's going to happen. We said, okay, we're going to make it happen. It's already happened. We just have to make it happen. That's how we thought. Okay, it's already happened. It's just happened in the future. So because it's already happened, now we just have to start making it happen. It's like the drama's been written. Now we just have to enact it. Okay, so let's enact it. That's how we were successful. If you don't think that way, you can't be successful. It doesn't work. So that's a very, very important point. And if we think this way, things are just going to get better and better and better. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll see you hopefully next weekend. Well, I'll be in Monterey. But I'll be giving class, probably Bhagavatam class. So we'll see you then. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.